They tried to provoke you, to pull you into their chaos to see if you'd break. But the moment you stayed still, they realized you were the one in control. The first step toward real power is learning to detach. Not from people, not from life, but from your own reactions. Most people live in constant emotional response, moved by every insult, every compliment, every shift in tone. They believe reacting means they are alive, that it shows passion, honesty, humanity. But in truth, it only shows they can be moved. The one who can be moved can be controlled. The one who stays still while the world shakes gains command of it. Detachment isn't about not caring, it's about caring correctly. It's about deciding what deserves your energy and what doesn't. You stop chasing explanations. You stop rushing to prove yourself. You stop giving your emotions away for free. When you begin to detach, you start to see the world more clearly. You see how people use emotions to pull reactions from you, to test your weakness, to measure how much control they have. You see how entire arguments are built on bait. Someone says something sharp, and you rise to defend, to correct, to justify. You think you're standing up for yourself, but you've already fallen into their frame. Detachment removes that trap. It gives you the space between what happens and what you do next. And that small space, that single moment of pause, is where power lives. People will call you cold when you stop reacting. They'll call you arrogant, distant, or emotionless. Let them. Most of them have mistaken chaos for connection. They think that the louder they are, the more they matter. They don't understand that control doesn't scream, it breathes. Detachment teaches you that silence is not absence, it's observation. When you're detached, you see patterns others miss. You notice who needs attention, who seeks control, who hides fear behind confidence. You start to understand that emotion is not truth, it's noise. And when you stop being ruled by noise, you start hearing reality. The first detachment feels strange. You will want to react. You will feel the urge to explain, to prove, to fight for understanding. But if you resist it, if you hold the silence, something changes. You start to feel lighter. You stop waiting for people to validate you. You stop fearing what they think. The moment you no longer need their approval, they lose their power over you. That is when your mind becomes your own. That is when control begins. Detachment doesn't make you less human. It makes you less breakable. You still feel, but you choose when to feel. You still care, but you decide what deserves it. You move through the world with a calm others can't understand, and that calm draws respect. The emotional man is always chasing peace. The detached man already has it. He doesn't run from storms. He watches them, studies them, waits for the right moment to move, because he knows the truth. The one who can stand still, while others drown in reaction, already rules the tide. Power begins with what you see, not what you say. Most people move through life half-blind because they are too busy talking, explaining, and trying to be understood. They fill silence with words and miss the messages hidden inside it. The observer moves differently. He knows that attention is a weapon, and that whoever controls it controls the room. So he does not rush to speak. He does not compete for space. He sits back and studies. He listens for what is not being said, for the small tremors in tone, for the flicker of insecurity behind confidence, for the way someone's eyes shift when the truth gets close. He collects information before he moves, and when he finally does, he moves with precision. Observation is not weakness, it is strategy. The average person believes that action means power, but they forget that wrong action destroys it. The observer waits until the pattern becomes visible. He understands that people repeat themselves even when they don't notice. Their words, their habits, their emotions, all follow predictable lines. When you learn to read those lines, you stop reacting to people and start directing them. You begin to sense who is bluffing, who is desperate, who wants to be led. You start seeing motives instead of just moves. The world becomes slower, clearer, easier to predict. The throne of the observer is built on patience. In every conversation, there are those who fight to be heard and those who control what is heard. The ones who listen quietly often end up running the room. Their silence makes people uneasy, makes them over-explain, makes them reveal too much. Observation creates pressure without noise. It makes others question themselves. And when people start doubting their own words, They start looking to you for cues. That is how control begins, through quiet curiosity that looks like calm. To master observation, you must first remove your need to participate in everything. Most people speak because silence feels unbearable. They want to fill it to prove they belong. But the observer knows silence is not empty. It is full of information. He allows others to expose their own psychology, while he remains still. He knows that in every group the loudest are rarely the most powerful. The one who watches from the edge learns more than those fighting at the center. He becomes the one everyone later calls perceptive, intuitive, wise. But what he really is detached. In time, observation becomes instinct. You start to sense the temperature of a room the way others feel the weather. You notice who glances for approval, who dominates out of fear, who flatters to survive. You see the rhythm of human behavior, and you use it, not to manipulate, but to move with clarity. The observer's power is not in control of others, but in mastery of himself. Because when you no longer need to react, you can choose exactly when to act. And in a world of impulsive voices, the quiet one who waits always wins. The moment you let your emotions show, you hand over a map of your mind. People see where to press, how to provoke, what to use. That is why emotional distance is not coldness, it is protection. Every reaction reveals coordinates. Every sigh and every glare tells the world where to aim. The detached person understands this deeply. They do not let their mood or ego dictate what the world gets to see. They feel everything, but they show nothing unless it serves a purpose. To them, emotion is not random expression, it is calculated investment. They know when to reveal softness and when to show steel. They know that calm under pressure doesn't just show control, it commands respect. The world trains people to think emotional honesty is strength. In truth, it often becomes exposure. The moment you show frustration, others sense weakness. The moment you show jealousy, others know they have power over you. The detached person doesn't suppress emotion, they master it. They step back from their own feelings and watch them from a distance, asking, "What is this reaction trying to make me do?" They refuse to be puppets to their impulses. They wait until the emotional storm passes, and only then do they decide how to act. That pause, that restraint, that invisible moment of control is where real power lives. When you stay calm, others project stories onto you. They guess, they assume, they overthink. That confusion works in your favor. The one who cannot read you cannot predict you, and the one who cannot predict you cannot control you. Emotional distance turns you into a mirror that reflects other people's instability back at them. They become louder, more desperate, more emotional, while you remain still. The crowd doesn't see your feelings, it sees your composure, and in a world addicted to reaction, composure looks like dominance. To build emotional distance, you must learn to pause before responding. You must learn to let silence hold what anger wants to break. It feels unnatural at first, like holding your breath underwater, but the more you practice, the easier it becomes. You begin to notice that most situations don't require a reaction. They require awareness. Someone insults you, you stay silent. Someone doubts you, you stay calm. Someone tries to bait you, you stay still. And what happens next is simple. They lose interest, or they lose control. Either way, you win without effort. Emotional distance doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop being enslaved by their opinions. You no longer need to convince, defend, or prove. You let others reveal who they are while you protect who you are. Over time, this control becomes visible. People sense it in your tone, your eyes, your pace. They can't tell if you are dangerous or simply unbothered, and that uncertainty gives you quiet power. Because when emotion becomes choice, not reflex, you stop being reactive and start being untouchable. The reason most people lose in power games is not because they lack intelligence. It's because they move too soon. They rush to speak, to act, to prove, before they understand the terrain they've stepped into. They want to win, but they haven't studied the field. Every room, every conversation, every group has its own structure. There are hidden alliances, silent hierarchies, invisible power lines. The one who walks in unaware becomes a pawn in someone else's design. The Machiavellian mind refuses that role. He reads before he reacts. He treats every social setting like a battlefield, not of violence, but of influence. He observes where the attention flows, who controls it, who fights for it, and who quietly directs it from the shadows. Reading the field without entering it means you learn to watch tension without adding to it. You let others reveal themselves. You notice who interrupts and who listens, who seeks validation and who gives it, who tries too hard to appear confident and who doesn't need to. Every move tells a story. When you observe long enough, people expose their desires and fears without realizing it. They show what they crave, what they avoid, and what they will do to maintain status. You, meanwhile, stay silent, collecting data like a strategist before a war. You know that action without awareness is self-sabotage, and patience is often the most aggressive form of power. The ones who enter too quickly always end up dancing to someone else's rhythm. They speak before they sense the mood. They challenge before they understand the alliances. They fight battles that were never theirs. But the observer knows that silence is not surrender. It's setup. He watches who dominates the discussion, who nods along to maintain favor, who tests boundaries to see who will yield. Every moment gives him an advantage, because once you see the pattern, you no longer need to compete. You guide the flow instead of chasing it. When you read the field correctly, you start to sense the hidden energy in every situation. You can tell when a compliment is actually a trap, when a question is really an accusation, when a laugh hides envy. You see under the surface of words, and that vision keeps you immune to manipulation. You stop reacting to tone and start reading motive. The desperate will always show themselves, because desperation leaks through even the most polished words. The person who must be seen, must be praised, must be right, is already exposed. The true operator never fights for attention, because he knows that attention freely given is more powerful than attention demanded. To read the field without entering it is to understand that control begins before conversation. It's the calm study of pressure points, the quiet awareness of who's leading and who's following. It's the art of standing still while everyone else rushes forward. And when the moment finally comes to move, your single step shifts everything, because you've already mapped the entire game. That is what separates the emotional from the strategic, the impulsive from the powerful, the pawn from the player. Real influence is not about how much noise you make, it's about how deeply your presence changes the atmosphere. The powerful rarely need to speak loudly because their silence already carries meaning. They don't rush to fill space, they let space work for them. The quiet person in the room is often the one who sets its rhythm. People look at them before they speak. They read their reactions before deciding how to act. This is not coincidence, it is design. The art of invisible influence is built on restraint, on the ability to hold power without having to show it. When you no longer need to be seen to be felt, you have reached a level of control most never touch. Influence begins with awareness. The detached operator studies energy instead of words. They watch how people lean forward when eager, how they pull back when uncertain, how laughter shifts when hierarchy changes. They understand that people don't respond to logic first, they respond to tone, presence, and confidence. So the operator cultivates stillness. Stillness draws attention the way gravity holds planets. When others talk, they listen. When others rush to prove themselves, they stay calm. This calm becomes magnetic, because in a world addicted to reaction, composure feels rare, almost sacred. People sense it and move toward it without knowing why. Invisible influence is not manipulation, it's mastery of timing. It's knowing that silence after a statement can weigh more than another 1,000 words. It's the pause that makes others think, the glance that interrupts arrogance, the slight shift of tone that changes the entire mood. Those who control tempo control outcome. The one who knows when to speak and when to wait becomes the center of gravity in any conversation. The less you do, the more others reveal themselves. They fill your silence with their insecurities. They chase your approval. They try to read your mind. And in doing so, they move according to your rhythm, not theirs. You practice invisible influence by reducing your need to explain or persuade. You don't convince, you create presence. You don't demand attention, you absorb it. The detached operator doesn't fight for dominance, they become dominance through calm. Every movement is deliberate. Every word is chosen like a blade. They know that when something is rare, it becomes valuable. In a crowd of people desperate to speak, the one who waits becomes the one who matters most. Power that must be declared is unstable. Real power doesn't need validation. It is seen without effort. Invisible influence works because it turns curiosity into submission. The more people try to understand you, the more power you hold. They imagine your motives, your intentions, your thoughts, and in doing so they build your legend for you. That is the paradox of power. The less you reveal, the more they believe. To influence without forcing, to command without noise, to move the world through quiet presence, that is silent dominance. The reason most people lose power is not because they are wrong, but because they react. Every time you react to an insult, a doubt, or a provocation, you give control of your mind to the one who started it. Reaction is the invisible leash that pulls you into someone else's frame. They say something sharp, you defend. They question your value, you justify. They win, not because they were right, but because they made you move. The Machiavellian mind knows this game too well. It understands that attention is the real battlefield. Whoever controls attention controls emotion. So the goal is not to win arguments, but to stay unreadable, unshaken, untouchable. Breaking the loop of reaction begins with one simple shift. Realizing that most attacks have nothing to do with truth. They are emotional bait. People throw words like hooks, hoping you will bite. They want to see if they can make you angry, nervous, defensive, or desperate to prove yourself. When you take the bait, they don't just gain your attention, they gain your energy. You end up fighting their war instead of directing your own. Detachment is how you end that game. You stay calm. You don't give them reaction, only reflection. Their noise meets silence, and silence starves it. They expect fire. You give them ice. You let their words echo until they expose themselves. In every conflict, the one who reacts first loses power. They show their emotions, their fears, their triggers. The one who remains calm shifts the focus. The crowd begins to notice composure. They see tension on one side and control on the other. They stop listening to the words and start watching the behavior. And behavior always reveals who is stronger. That is the hidden advantage of stillness. It makes your opponent unravel while you remain centered. Breaking the loop doesn't mean ignoring everything. It means responding on your own terms, in your own time, when it serves your position. Sometimes silence is enough. Sometimes a calm, "Is that how you see it?" ends the attack better than 100 defensive words. You don't feed the drama, you contain it. The attacker becomes louder, more emotional, more desperate to be validated. You remain still, and the imbalance grows. Eventually they look unstable, and you look in control. To master this, you must train yourself to pause before emotion becomes action. You must learn to recognize when someone is trying to pull you into their storm. You can't stop people from throwing noise at you, but you can refuse to be moved by it. Detachment turns conflict into theater. You stop being the actor and become the audience, and from that distance you see everything clearly. When you stop reacting, something strange happens. The ones who tried to provoke you begin to lose confidence. They can't find your weakness, and that unsettles them. They start defending themselves without being attacked. You've flipped the power. Because in a world that feeds on reaction, silence is rebellion. And in rebellion, power always returns to the calm. Stillness is not a lack of movement, it is the highest form of control. Most people mistake motion for progress and noise for strength. They rush to act, to speak, to decide, thinking speed equals power. But the one who moves too fast becomes predictable. The one who pauses becomes unreadable. Stillness confuses the impulsive and frustrates the impatient. It shifts pressure from you to them. Every second you wait, they reveal more. Every moment you remain calm, they lose more balance. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing, it means doing nothing until the right moment arrives. And when it does, your single move carries the force of 10 rushed ones. The most dangerous opponent is not the one who attacks first, but the one who waits. The still mind observes everything. It notices who acts out of ego, who hides fear behind confidence, who mistakes noise for dominance. It knows that chaos exposes the truth faster than questioning ever could. When people rush, they show their weaknesses. When you stay still, you make them show their cards without asking. That's not passivity, that's design. You let their emotions burn energy while you conserve yours. You let them waste words, time, and effort while you prepare your strike in silence. Stillness turns into strategy when you use it to control the tempo. You decide the rhythm of the game by refusing to play at their speed. You slow everything down until impatience breaks them. Most people cannot handle silence. They need movement to feel in control. When you give them none, they start overcompensating. They talk more, reveal more, act rashly, and eventually destroy their own position. All you did was wait. That is the secret. The calm one never needs to dominate by force, only by patience. To use stillness effectively, you must master your emotions. You cannot be still on the outside while restless on the inside. True stillness is mental quiet. It's the ability to sit with discomfort and not reach for distraction. It's the ability to hold your expression steady when others try to provoke it. The world trains people to react. It rewards urgency, noise, and instant answers. But in power dynamics, speed is often the enemy of accuracy. The still one collects every detail, every reaction, every sign of weakness before choosing to move. And when they finally do, it feels inevitable, as if the world was waiting for it. Stillness is not about being slow, it's about being certain. It's about acting once, cleanly, decisively, without waste. The impatient need many moves to prove control. The still need only one. Stillness gives you advantage in arguments, in business, in relationships, because it shows emotional discipline. It makes others depend on your next move, while you depend on none. The world belongs to those who can wait without losing focus. Stillness wins what speed cannot, because power that waits multiplies. There is a strange rule that governs human behavior, a quiet law that operates beneath every interaction. It is the law of social gravity. When you stop chasing, things start coming to you. When you stop trying to be noticed, people begin to notice you. The more you pull back, the more attention you attract. It sounds backwards, but it isn't. Most people move through life begging to be seen. They over-explain, over-post, over-share, all in an effort to feel significant. But in doing so, they reveal hunger, and hunger weakens position. The detached person, on the other hand, creates a different kind of energy. By not chasing, they create curiosity. By not needing, they become needed. That's the quiet trick of power. It flows to those who don't demand it. The world is full of people desperate to be validated. They measure their worth by reactions, approval, and likes. They are in constant pursuit of attention because they believe attention equals value. But the truth is, attention follows value, not the other way around. When you detach, when you stop trying to convince anyone of your worth, you create a vacuum. And nature hates a vacuum. People feel it. They sense the calm confidence that comes from someone who isn't competing for space. That absence of need becomes a magnet. They start leaning toward you, trying to understand what makes you so composed. They build stories around your silence, and those stories often elevate you more than any explanation ever could. Detachment doesn't mean disappearing, it means becoming selective. You don't give your time to everyone. You don't speak to prove. You don't respond just to be seen. You let others wonder. You create space, and that space pulls attention like gravity. Rarity always attracts because it challenges people's sense of control. They can't easily categorize or predict you, and the human mind is drawn to what it can't fully define. You become a question that needs answering, a calm presence in a loud world. They begin to chase what they can't understand, and you become the center of their focus simply by staying still. Social gravity works in every area of life. In relationships, the one who is less dependent emotionally always sets the tone. In business, the one who doesn't rush for approval commands respect. In conversation, the one who listens more and speaks less becomes the anchor everyone orbits around. You gain influence not by effort, but by restraint. You let others come to you because they feel your self-sufficiency. It is rare to find someone who doesn't need attention, and that rarity makes you unforgettable. Power doesn't announce itself. It attracts. When you no longer chase attention, you free yourself from its control. People feel that freedom, and they start to seek it through you. You didn't demand power. You attracted it by not needing it. And that is the essence of social gravity. The world always turns toward those who can stand still. The highest level of power is not loud or forceful. It is quiet and effortless. It is when you stop needing to prove who you are because everyone already feels it. You reach a point where your presence itself shapes the room. You no longer compete for influence, you define it. You no longer chase control, you are control. Calm authority is the final evolution of power, where silence does more than words ever could. It is not about being cold, it is about being centered. You are not distant because you don't care. You are distant because nothing outside you decides your worth. Detachment at this level is not escape, it is mastery. You have learned to rule the emotional field without touching it. When you reach this stage, your movements are slow and deliberate. You do not rush decisions, you don't explain, you don't justify. You wait until the moment aligns with your intention, then you act once, and that single action changes everything. The silent ruler knows timing is worth more than talk. Most people scatter their energy trying to be seen, but you concentrate yours like a blade. You act rarely, but with precision. Every move carries weight because it feels inevitable. People sense it even if they can't explain why. They adjust themselves to your rhythm, they slow their words, they measure their tone. That is the invisible crown of calm authority. Others regulate themselves around your stillness. True domination is not about forcing obedience, it's about commanding respect without asking for it. You don't need to be feared, though you might be. You don't need to be liked, though you might be admired. What you need is presence, the kind that makes people think twice before crossing you. That power doesn't come from arrogance, it comes from composure. You have trained your emotions so deeply that nothing shakes you. Accusations, praise, rumors, praise again. It all passes through you like wind through glass, and the world begins to see you differently. You become something rare, something stable in a sea of noise. People begin to depend on your steadiness, and that dependency turns into authority. At this level, silence becomes language. Every pause speaks of confidence, every glance signals certainty. You dominate not by confrontation, but by gravity. People align around you because they can feel you are unmoved. The emotional lose power near the unshaken. They start mirroring your calm, lowering their tone, softening their stance. Without saying a word, you set the terms. That is what it means to dominate without noise. The silent rule of domination is simple but difficult. Detach, so no one can use emotion against you. Observe so no move escapes your awareness. Dominate not through reaction but through precision. The quiet man at the top is not emotionless, he is evolved. He has learned that control of self is control of all. When you no longer fight for position, you become the position. When you no longer chase power, you become power itself. Maybe this video helped you see yourself or someone you know in a different way. Feel free to let us know via a like or in the comments. And if you want more wisdom and guidance in becoming a better version of yourself, subscribe now. This is the moment to start becoming the person you really want to be.